Hello there. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Counselor Jay, and this is going to be my UCLA Waitlist letter guide. Uh, let's just jump straight into it. I start off with a basic example that I've seen. It's very typical of what I read for students that don't get any coaching or haven't really given much thought into how they should try to stand out with this. This is going to be your final shot, so you might as well pull all the tricks that you can. I do know for UCLA, they ask and provide an example in the waitlist notification about providing courses and updates to grades. My thought here is if your grades are not close to all A's, UCLA is a really, really tough school. So, of course, there's other things to consider, like your major choice and the circumstances. But normally, if you are really struggling with grades at this point, getting into UCLA is going to be extremely difficult. But if you do have pretty solid grades, maybe all A's and a B, maybe two B's, then I think you should really try to give this a shot. I started with a basic example. You can go ahead and read that. I'll provide the link to this doc below. I just try to make it as simple as possible. But it's actually very common, this type of style. I think it's very common to see a student receive advice about how they're undeterred, though disappointed. I remain committed, and if accepted, I will attend. And I see that a lot. So the common critiques that I give, the introduction could be pretty generic with usually that type of starting point. And in addition to that, I feel like it doesn't really grip the reader. The readers are going to read through hundreds, if not thousands, of these. So this is your chance. You might as well go to town with it and try to swing for the fences. I also think that students tend to just provide updates rather than being thoughtful of how they want to integrate those updates into selling points about themselves as to why UCLA should consider me, why I'm a good fit for this school, what I can contribute to the school, what value I can bring to the school. A way I try to coach students and analogize this is if you are if UCLA is a basketball team and they really need 3 and D players, or if they really need a center that can hold the defensive end, then you should be leaning towards that. So in a similar vein, you should be thinking about what UCLA really wants in a student and how they want to basically create a composition of students to create a community that really represents UCLA. And the last thing, I think if I had to have a third common critique, it's just that maybe sometimes you need to do a little bit more research on why UCLA. That means going into the UCLA website and also going into the UCLA's major website. So there's the main ucla.edu, and then there's the separate websites for each major choice or each department. You should be scouring through that to find some sort of connection and synergy with your updates. So where do I start? I think most students just start by pulling up a draft and writing, or looking at an example and then starting to write. I ask my students to take a step back and start brainstorming, start reflecting. Since you've applied, what are some things that you can really use as tools here for your case? And so I listed out things: leadership growth in clubs, maybe new leadership actions you've taken, new club activities that you've spearheaded, have endeavored, new responsibilities. Maybe you were taking on the role of student council treasurer secretary, but now you also have to take on the role of the historian, and that expands the scope of the impact that you're having on your school, and you should be able to demonstrate that or showcase that. I'm a little okay about academic work, like my grades, my AP grades in school. But if you instead talk more outside, let's say you're helping with certain types of research at UCI, or if you are working on a speech and debate brief that you can then use to train the next year of students, these kinds of more academic extracurricular activities outside of the typical coursework and grades, those are things I'd be interested in trying to parse out and trying to kind of amplify. Community involvement, volunteering, you guys could read the rest. I often run into students that don't have any updates, and that's okay. I would argue that one of the things that you can do is you can start now. Something is better than nothing. You can start now and show that you're progressing. So by the time you submit by April 15th, or by the time the SIR, the statement of intent to register for all the accepted students are due by May 1st, then you'll have maybe some progress made, and that is better than nothing. So start thinking, every Saturday, every Sunday from here on out, an hour a day, think about what you could do to showcase more of your endeavor towards your major interest or your leadership or your community impact. And then I want you to start aligning all of that with what UCLA is all about. Every school has a mission statement. They have their own kind of vibe, so to speak, and sense of student culture. So you should be really thinking about what is the end aspect that you're trying to align yourself to. And so here's a quick little chart here of what you can try to begin with when you're brainstorming this out. What are some updates that reflect my intellectual curiosity, my academic excellence, my civic responsibility, my creative expression, my collaborativeness, and my sense of empathy for those around me, my resilience and growth? If you can pick out maybe 2, 3, 4 of these and weave them together, some activity updates are hybrids of these. Maybe one activity is communication voice along with intellectual curiosity, or maybe another one is your civic responsibility related to a creative approach in which you were that way. Continuing on, you just don't want to list, as I mentioned at the very beginning, don't just list out your updates. Here it is. I remain resolute, and if accepted, I will go. Thank you. You still need to sell yourself, you guys. You have to learn how to sell yourself. And this is something that I think is easy to coach if we can go into like a one-on-one type of situation. But I think the best way to sell this or to learn about this is actually to start watching CEOs or startup companies and their representatives and how they sell their ideas or sell their products. It can also be elected positions. I remember I was very moved by a specific individual, I think several years ago, who was running for LA comptroller, and nobody knew who he was. So he had to sell himself. And I remember saving that, clipping that, and giving that to my students because I thought it was a great showcase of how you sell yourself. So find a way, go on YouTube, start watching content where people are showcasing what they stand for, what their product is, what they're running for, and why. And usually that could be very helpful. Stop doom scrolling at this moment. You also want to be introspecting. What did I learn from these updates, and how can I connect these updates to UCLA? And then lastly, I think if I had to give you just an overall vibe check, it should be humble, be grateful, but be eager, be hungry. Final thoughts, as I mentioned, for UCLA, it's 7,000 cc's. A common question I get is, Jay, do I have to write all 7,000? The term I say when I'm brainstorming, drafting with students throughout the essay season is saturating the word count. You don't need to saturate, in this case, the character count. I think 2,000 characters is good to up to 4,000 characters is fine. If you're going over and maxing at 7,000, chances are you're probably padding your stats, you're probably fluffing, and you don't want to lose that sense of like momentum and sharpness in your updates. If you end up indicating or like really fluffing up to 7,000, I think you'll do yourself more harm than good. And side note, you should consider asking your high school counselor, if even if you haven't met them, or even if you may not feel like you have a great relationship, you can try scheduling an appointment saying, hey, these are my results. I got waitlisted. I would really love to go there. Is there anything you could do for me? Is there any way that maybe you can give me some assistance? And if they say no, then all right. But if they say yes, then let's see where that takes you. And then lastly, I think it's due April 15th. For other waitlists, if they don't give you a deadline, I still would aim for around April 15th. I've heard notions, and I've even had to address these notions of like, hey, Jay, if I get waitlisted, is it advantageous for me to submit an appeal letter right away? I've heard that students will get waitlist results even before May 1st. To me, I'm just going to keep it simple. I think if you aim to submit by around April 15th, 2 weeks before a SIR deadline, I think you'll be fine. I think anything sooner is not really going to be that impactful. I'd rather spend the time to build up and draft a really compelling letter. And then lastly, I wanted to show you like an actual example process. So if you are interested, you can click that link below and you can see the update ideas, how I would create bullet points and brainstorm for an update, and then how I would then turn that into a more compelling a waitlist letter. The hook is much better. The connection to UCLA is much stronger. I don't have any of that generic stuff that everyone else is advising and coaching. And yeah, I hope that this is helpful to you. And if it is, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys around. Good luck.